You wake up, you check your phone, you look at your bank account and know that it is all safe. It is exactly where it was yesterday. And yet something is happening that is far stranger. Something is draining away at your wealth hour by hour. Right now, there is a tap that nobody told you about, running silently into your bank account. It will not show up as a withdrawal on your teller sheet, never alert you when it is happening. Year after year, someone is stealing away at roughly $10,000 of your life, and you are blind to every fraudulent transaction. What is happening? If you want to see what is happening to your money, stop looking at your cash. Look at the time instead. Money represents the time you have traded to earn it, and when its value decreases, a part of you dies with it. In fact, what you are seeing is the money illusion, a term coined by noted economist Irving Fisher. Your consciousness is tricking you into thinking that the same amount of money represents the same value. You see a familiar face and think you know what it is, but do you really trust your eyes? Do a reality check. When was the last time you went to the grocery store? Did you buy the same things as you always do? Did you notice that the box had less of whatever product you purchased? Perhaps the price was the same, but the box was smaller. That means you are experiencing shrinkflation, a tactic used by corporations to make you believe they have not stolen from you when they clearly have. The entire economy is working together to con you and make you think that the same amount of money represents the same amount of value. Why would companies do this to you? Because the government has decided to print more money than it needs to, devaluing everyone's earnings. When the government has to print money to fund itself, it is called expansionary policy. When they print more money than is needed, it does not create new resources or make the economy more efficient. All it does is decrease the value of every dollar you own. When the great economist Milton Friedman was asked what inflation really meant, he said that it was a tax. A tax, of course, is normally an explicit event. Your taxable income is printed out for you on your paycheck, and when it is time to write a check, you know exactly how much money you owe. Money illusion tricks you into thinking that this tax only occurs when you give the government some of your earnings, but in reality, it happens to you implicitly throughout your life. Inflation acts as a massive wealth redistributive force, bleeding the earnings of the productive working class back into the coffers of the elite 1%. This leads us to the Cantillon effect, an economic phenomenon named after 18th century banker Richard Cantillon. The Cantillon effect occurs because when the central bank prints more money, it does not enrich everyone at the same time. There is a hierarchy of wealth, with the most powerful individuals at the top. When the central bank injects more cash into the economy, those at the top of the hierarchy are the first to benefit. This causes assets to increase in value because the wealthy are buying up everything in sight. When the new money reaches you, the price level has already gone up, meaning you are not as rich as you think you should be. Does the wealth gap seem absurd to you? Of course it does. The entire economy seems stacked against you and designed to rob you slowly and implicitly over the course of your life. But why is this the case? Because of inflation. When you look at the cost of living, it seems like everything is much more expensive than it has any right to be. You look at a TV commercial and see a family of 4 buying a steak for dinner. You think to yourself, I wish I could afford to buy my family a meal like that. But the reality is that the government is not accurately accounting for inflation. The Bureau of Economic Analysis uses a theoretical basket of goods to measure inflation. So if the price of steak increases, they will lower it to the price of chicken to balance it out. If you are one of the many people who do not buy a basket of goods to determine your cost of living, you fall victim to the money illusion. Your house, healthcare, and education cost exponentially more than they did 30 years ago. Inflation makes it much harder for you to live the life you want while making the wealthy impossibly rich. You should be earning more and paying less, but instead you have to slave away just so you can afford to stay exactly where you are. Do you want to escape this purgatory? Let's analyze your disappearing $10,000. Let's say that you have $50,000 in a standard savings account. The bank is giving you less than 1% interest, while the amount of goods that you can buy with that money is steadily decreasing. If wages increase by a certain percentage while prices increase by a higher one, you fall victim to the wealth redistribution phenomenon known as inflation. If you want to keep as much of your earnings as possible, you need to be acutely aware of the amount of money flowing out as rent, insurance, or other expenses. It all adds up, and soon you are losing thousands of dollars a year due to an economic policy that is designed to keep you broke. There is a psychological component to this as well. Psychologist Daniel Kahneman has studied the decision-making process and concluded that losses hurt much more than gains feel good. The illusion of choice tricks you into thinking you have much more control than you actually do. It feels good to earn an extra $500, but it feels much worse to lose that same amount. Money illusion makes it much harder for you to feel good about your life. If you were mugged and woke up to find your wallet empty, you would immediately file a police report. If the government is slowly draining your bank account, you feel helpless and do not know what to do. You feel as if you make as much as you earn, but you somehow do not have enough to get by. You blame yourself for being broke and wonder if you could have made more money if you had worked harder. Why do you accept the wealth redistribution that the government commits against you? Your paycheck is nothing but a con job designed to rob you. In recent decades, the average productivity per worker has skyrocketed. Americans are working smarter and harder than ever. But when you look at wages, the amount of money you make per hour has barely increased since the 1970s. The wealth that you produce is not going back into your pocket. It is being pocketed by executives and then redistributed to the top 1%. You give them more of your life, and in return, they give you less of your earnings. Look around at the American dream and see how it is crumbling. Decades ago, most people only needed a single income to buy a nice home and be comfortable. Now, a family needs 2 or more incomes to afford their mortgage. The houses themselves have barely changed in size or quality, but the amount of money needed to buy one has skyrocketed. Why is it so much harder to survive now than it was 30 years ago? It is because wages have not increased while prices have skyrocketed. Inflation has decreased the value of your money, forcing you to work longer hours just so you can afford to live as comfortably as your parents did. Do you know why banks benefit from this? Because they are the ones that give you the loan in the first place. Debt keeps you working for the banks for the rest of your life. Even the money you save is wasted on you. If you know about the con that the banks are pulling, you are smart enough to invest in the stock market instead. But when you go to sell your stocks, the amount of money you make is much less than you expected. If you factor in the capital gains tax and the increased inflation, you might find yourself losing money on your investment. The government is robbing you with a tax on the wealth that they know you are trying to save. Are you surprised that they do it? How could you win a game that is rigged against you? Are you interested in understanding how this game got set up in the first place? In 1971, President Nixon took the U.S. off of the gold standard. Before this event, all Federal Reserve notes were backed and convertible for gold. In other words, the U.S. was on a gold standard. There was a certain amount of gold in the vaults at all times, and the government could never print more money than there was gold. When Nixon announced this policy shift, all of the money printing in the world changed forever. The money that you use was promised to be as valuable as gold, but now it is no longer even close. Do you know what happens when the value of your money gets printed away? When the money supply increases exponentially due to expansionary monetary policy, the entire economy feels the effects. To combat recession, central banks inject cash into the commercial banking system. This creates a boom in stocks but makes your savings account shrink right along with the value of your paycheck. It is similar to buying a soup that has been diluted with water until it barely has any flavor left. You still have a bowl of soup in front of you, but it no longer has the nutrition that you came to expect. We are stuck in an economic game where the rules keep changing. We play against banks that win every time we lose, and the government cheats when it wants to get away with it. We are constantly having our wealth redistributed to others through taxes, inflation, and other means. The game is rigged and designed to favor the people who already have wealth. The illusion of choice makes us feel as if we benefit when we invest in the stock market or deposit money into the banks, when in reality the value of our savings is steadily decreasing. The value of $1 is being steadily decreased in value, and so is your life due to the constant inflation of our hours spent working. When the U.S. took the U.S. off of the gold standard, it changed the way that all of our money functioned. A central bank is an institution that controls the value of a currency. When it adds cash to the economy, the value of the currency decreases slightly. This causes asset prices to rise, with the effect being much stronger on financial assets such as stock certificates and fancy real estate. The people who own these before the money is injected will see a significant increase in their net worth without having put in any additional work. It is one of the best ways to quietly become wealthy that the world has ever seen. As soon as the central bank has finished its monetary stimulus, the prices of common goods and services start to increase. The workers who have to buy these things slowly feel their standard of living decrease. If they try to renegotiate their wages to reflect the new prices, it is too late. The whole country has shifted beneath them. and the game moves on. Do you want to know how you can fight back against the hidden forces that are working against you? Hidden costs are bled from your wallet faster than you can notice them. Every single time you use a credit card, 2 or 3% goes to the institution that processes the payment. This does not come directly from you, but it causes merchants to raise their prices so that they can maintain a steady rate of profit. Even if you pay in cash, you are still subsidizing the same complex electronic system that makes the whole scam possible. At the same time, you are probably being charged an interest rate much higher than you would ever pay if you put the money in a standard savings account. The banks benefit from both sides of the transaction. Is this not the most unfair deal you have ever heard of? Do you know what happened to the American job market over the last few decades? If you were a proud employee who stayed loyal to a single company for 30 years, you can guess what happened next. Your golden retirement pension has been replaced with a much smaller amount that barely keeps you fed. Companies no longer want to keep their employees for as long as they always did, so they give away smaller raises every year. In order to keep your standard of living the same, you have to switch around jobs every few years. It leaves you in constant frustration and instability, always working to earn more money, just to keep pace with a cost of living that always increases too quickly. Is this how you want to spend the rest of your life? Your relationship with taxes is probably not a healthy one. Whenever the company you work for gives you a small cost of living raise, you find yourself slipping up a tax bracket and getting charged significantly more in taxes. This happens because a higher percentage of your paycheck goes to the government, even though you should be able to keep nearly the same amount of money as you did in the previous year. This is a tactic that is designed to get more money out of you. After all, you are earning more, so of course you should be paying more. If you fall victim to bracket creep, you will feel as if your standard of living has decreased, simply because more money is being taken out of your paycheck. When you look at the markets, you will see why the economy continues to favor the wealthy. Trillions of derivatives change hands every day in a complex system that only a few people understand. Algorithmic traders make billions of dollars every year on stock market volatility, taking advantage of the average person who only puts in a small amount of time to research and make trades. The system favors the ones who already know the most, and it can crush the everyday investor at any moment. Can you compete with an entire finance building full of algorithms? In the same way that you need to learn about the game to beat it, you need to understand what is happening to your wealth in order to reverse the process. Not only does this unfair system hurt your finances, but it also takes away your happiness. People who have to pay more for healthcare and housing make difficult decisions about their everyday lives. Do young couples have sex in their parents' basement because buying a house would be too expensive? If one family member has an emergency, do other family members skip preventative healthcare for themselves so that the copays will not be as expensive? Inflation turns your entire life into one big set of difficult choices. It saps your happiness, keeping you from enjoying your life the way that you deserve to. If you find yourself constantly choosing between your finances and your well-being, you need to recognize how much the system has taken from you. Do you think the system was built to favor you? Why would we accept a situation where our lives and happiness are being dictated to us by slow, steady inflation? If you are ready to take control, it is time to begin your search for knowledge. It is time to abandon the idea that leaving your wealth in the banking system is a good decision and move towards understanding how to protect it. You must stop thinking about your wealth in the same way that you always have. The rules have changed, and in order to win, you must be willing to do things differently. Do not leave your money in the bank. Think about alternative forms of wealth storage that will keep your hard-earned earnings safe from inflation and exploitation. If you want to leave something for your children and grandchildren, you need to invest in tangible, rare, and useful assets. You need to be a speculator, not an accumulator. You need to invest in your own skills, connections, and health, knowing that none of those things can be devalued by a central bank. Now that you know what has been happening to you and your wealth, what will your first move be? The most crucial thing you need to know about wealth preservation is that holding money in cash ensures that you will always lose. You must understand the difference between currency and assets. Currency is money, and when you hold it, you always lose because there is no way to stop its value from being steadily decreased by inflation. On the other hand, assets are physical things like land, products, or services that cannot lose value in the same way. It is much easier to preserve the value of what you have when you understand the concepts of money and assets. You must start investing in assets that are non-physical and difficult to produce. You will see a much easier path to wealth as you work to understand these concepts. Do you know how much time you spend wasting? If you were to look at your calendar, how many hours per day would you say that you waste your life on things that are completely pointless? How many hours per day do you give to the system that devalues your time? Think about the places where your life is wasted and how you could spend that time doing something worthwhile. You must reclaim your life from the system that steals from you and makes you waste your time. You must see the invisible costs for what they are. You can start today by being more financially literate and taking control of your own financial destiny. Do you want to continue being blind to the machinations of the financial system, or will you decide to see?